I can't see.
I got the duct tape out,
Town secretary.
created a box, all the phones in the box.
It's right here.
You're live, so anything you say. We'll
Surprised
share
it's only
with
$9.
everybody out in the World Wide Web.
Ready?
Yes, so.
Okay, since we don't have a chair, the first order of business is for the board to appoint someone to act as chair for this meeting. So is there a motion or nomination?
Motion to nominate Bill.
Is there a second?
Take this guy.
Is there,
We have two
I'll second
nominations.
it.
We
We
have
have
two
to, we have
nominations.
to wait for if there's a second or not on the first motion before second motion.
Second.
all right, so there's a motion. There's a motion to have Dell run the meeting. All right. So
Dale's running it.
anybody, we have the motion on the
Preferred
floor
you
with a
have
second to have Dell run the meeting. Is there, all in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Okay, well, the ayes have it. Looks like you've got it, Dell, so you are able to run this meeting tonight.
Okay. Meeting takes place at 5:34. It's open. What do we do next?
Pledge allegiance.
Oh, okay.
This is a script to kind of talk you through that. You
Okay.
should be able to follow along with it.
Okay, thank you.
Most people know, but they do it for the council.
Should be doing it. I'll call it to order. Pledge the flag. Are there any public participation like to speak at this time?
I fill out a card.
This card.
Public comment forms, this would just be for anything not listed in the public hearing. If you have any comments.
We need an approval for the meetings on November 3rd. Motion.
I had one change on the minutes. On one of the votes, it had it had Donna as voting both aye and nay. And as I recall, I think it was a unanimous.
Alan.
Otherwise, with that change, I approve, I move that we approve the minutes.
Second. Second.
Call for a vote.
Okay, variance 330 Porter Road, Bartonville, Texas. Public hearing to hear public comment and consider request by the applicant, Darren and Kathleen Foreman, owners of 330 Porter Road, for a variance from the zoning requirements set forth, town zoning regulations, Exhibit A, Division 4, special requirement, Chapter 19, accessory building, requiring accessory structures to comply with the minimum building setbacks established for the zoning district. Located, the variance sought to allow for the structure to be located 20 feet from the rear property line rather than the required 50 feet. Property is 3.31 acre tract of land, commonly known as 330 Porter Road, Texas. That presentation, please.
Sure. This variance that is up for consideration tonight is, as you mentioned, for a variance from the requirement that an accessory structure be located 50 feet from the property line. As you have seen in the packet, the property line question is their rear property line, which abuts their neighbor's lot at 324 Porter, which would be that neighbor's side property line. They're proposing to place this barn at approximately 20 feet from the property line rather than the required setback of 50 feet. So that does require a variance. The applicants have provided a number of documents showing the proposed location, as well as a letter indicating their reasoning behind their request for a variance. And your packet, you've also received some additional information regarding the neighboring property. And I'll explain kind of why we went into certain things in the cover sheet more than others. I have limited time here and I don't know you all very well, but from the conversations that I've had around the city, it seems like most of the decisions made by the bodies here are with the consideration of any negative impacts on neighbors, other properties nearby, that those are taken very seriously. And because this is a variance that does, I guess, request to be closer to the neighbor's property line, I wanted to make sure that you had all the information there as well. I've heard several comments about limiting accessory dwellings, not wanting to have things too congested in the rural residential estates type subdivisions and that sort of thing. So I was trying to put all of the facts in the document as far as the existing structures in place at 324 Porter, where this is proposed to be near the property line. So some of the things for consideration are the distance of the existing home at 324 Porter is not 50 feet from the property line. It's a legally non-conforming property, so it's only 38 or 39 feet from the property line. Where there's a setback in place of 50 feet, the assumption would be that there's 50 feet on both sides, which would lead to a 100-foot distance between a potential barn or structure and the neighboring property. In this case, it would be somewhere in the 60 to 70-foot range, just because of the distance of the home and the requested variance. So I wanted you to kind of have that information and not just assume that that other property, the home is further away from the property line because it's fairly close. That property also has an accessory dwelling on their property, which when you get to your public comment, we did receive public comment from the property owner at 324 Porter Road this afternoon. And you should all have a copy of those that I passed around at the beginning of the meeting. I don't have any other thing that I'd like to touch on really up front, but if you have any questions or anything that you'd like more clarity on, I'm happy to answer any questions for you from staff perspective. And then when you feel comfortable, you can move on to the applicant presentation if they have something they'd like to present.
So nobody else with the exhibits that have it, it shows kind of spatially where it's being requested. In relation to, there's an aerial photo kind of shows in relation, we can kind of see the residential structure.
Existing house 324 is, it's 38 feet from their south property.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Would you like to speak?
If anything you'd like to,
Give us your address and name.
And swear him in, Mr. Chair. You need to swear him in, Mr. Chair.
Well, swear the truth, the whole truth, not but the truth.
I do. You ready? I'm Darren Foreman. I'm one of the owners of 330 Porter Road. I would like to add that when we bought this property, it's in an ag zone. We want to be able to do agriculture. We have a couple horses at the moment and are planning on getting couple head of cattle. Our horses would have froze last year. We had no structures to protect them, and luckily one of our neighbors on the road took in our animals, which is kind of the impetus for building this structure to protect our livestock. We have consulted with all of our neighbors around us heavily. They're all in agreement that they're good with the location we're planning.
if you actually drive by the property, the sight line from the road, if we went with the 50-foot variance, it actually brings out the barn and puts it in front of the house, which is quite a bit less appealing in terms of the visual sight line from the road. Where it is now, or where we're planning on putting it, is up. There's kind of a natural slope. The land kind of flows down to the center. So the runoff kind of runs down, all flows to the center and runs down. If we move that house out, it puts the structure in the flow zone of the natural runoff, which means we'd have to completely regrade that whole acre to get the water to run around this building. And all of the replanting and grasses and everything that have to be redone. It also blocks the sight line from the home into the pasture, so we would be unable to see the livestock and what they're doing without going out past the barn, you know, to actually see what's going on. So aesthetically, in virtually every way, this is a better result in the planned location. It's better visually. All of our neighbors are in agreement. And everything, cost, grading, disruption to the land, replanting, you know, more fertilizers and stuff to regrow everything. It's just a much better solution to go with our proposed location. That's all I have. Any questions?
So your main reason for requesting this variance is mainly due to the topography, the hydrology of the property, to avoid, I guess.
I don't know if I'd call it the main reason. I would say it's an important reason. I consider the visual aspect, you know, sight line from the road, seeing the house. Yeah, I think it would look real tacky to have you wouldn't see our property, you would see a barn.
Property faces that road.
The property
drive,
faces the private road.
and not the main road.
Right. So I just think in every way it's a better solution with what we proposed.
Said that Mr. Dunn, he's not opposed.
None of our neighbors are opposed.
I'm reading this, which is,
This just came into the town
For him?
this afternoon.
it doesn't really say whether he opposes or is opposed or unopposed. It just,
See here, see,
He is not able to attend tonight. I spoke to him by phone earlier and when he sent this email in.
just kind of describes where the proposed barn's going to be and the distances from the house. And I was kind of expecting that he would say, yes, I've talked to my neighbors, I'm in favor of it, I'm not. He doesn't say that, so I mean, I take your
assure
word at
you,
it, that
you have a,
okay.
She needs to be sworn in.
Yeah,
She needs to be sworn in.
if she's going to speak as well.
She needs to
I
be sworn
apologize. We
in.
need to have you sworn in if you're going to
All
speak
right.
as well.
We
I'm
need to
sorry.
swear you in.
You can speak as the applicant. We
You'll be
just,
sworn in.
Yeah,
I do-
when I first read it, I didn't know whether he was for or against. So,
Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
God.
I do. So before we embarked on even thinking about the barn after the frost or the freeze that we had last year, we went and saw Mr. Dunn and his wife, and we asked them about it. We took into account the oak trees that are existing along the south property line because they are very well established and we don't want to tear anything down or remove any trees. So we moved the barn up closer towards the roadway, but still kept within the allotment from the public road, so that we didn't have to destroy the oak trees that are there. So in speaking with Mr. Dunn about it, both he and his wife were okay with where we were planning on putting the barn. And he sent me a text message on my phone saying that he was okay with that. I had went back to him after speaking with Corey and asked if he could send me a letter. And he said, oh, well, the city will send us an official letter asking us, and I will respond to it that way. But we went and we sought out Mr. Dunn. We have Mr. Dunlap here with us on our behalf as well. We went and spoke to every one of our neighbors before we even embarked on coming to the planning commission or thinking about placing a barn on the property. He is actually on our north property line.
So he's the next
So he's
door neighbor.
across the private road,
Okay.
directly across from us. So he's the one that's going to see the front of the barn.
Okay.
And aesthetically, the way we're positioning the barn, if you're looking from any other location, you're looking out on the barn that basically looks like it has a porch on the front. So it's adding to the aesthetics of the property as well.
Saw the pictures of the proposed barn. I mean, I think it looks.
I think his
Thank you.
primary objective was water flow.
Correct. So
That's what I'm
Drainage.
trying to get.
Yeah, there's no other way to, there's no place else to put it
Without.
unless they
bringing
spend
in-
a fortune
without
on,
bringing in dirt
yeah.
and Grading it.
Yeah, and
all that. That's what
also-
I'm trying to get at.
And what you're looking at when you're driving down Porter, if you move, the further out it moves to the south, the more you're going to see it. So it's in a good place.
And speaking with Mr. Dunn today, he did admit to previously giving indication to the applicants that he was okay with the property, with the barn being erected closer to his property line.
So that was a verbal.
I guess, I don't know what all transpired previously, but in looking at the application packets, which he had some questions about, he did request a drainage map or study or grading plan or something, which we don't require because of the size of this proposed structure. It doesn't require that they submit any sort of grading or drainage plan to the town. So I couldn't provide that to him. But in looking at the documents that were included in the packet, he believed there were some issues with some of the stuff that was presented in terms of where the water flows. That's why I think he provided you with pictures showing, in his opinion, where he believes the water would be flowing right to where the barn is being proposed rather than out further, if that makes sense. So I think that was a concern. And then after seeing how close the building is to being proposed to his home versus proximity to their home, I think it was a little concerning to him just from the size of the building that is proposed. So I don't know what transpired in the previous conversations, but I feel like you should have that information since that just came in from the nearest property owner this afternoon. Mr. Dunn. Yes.
So he'll see the back part of the property of the building, backside.
yes, sir. And currently what's there is Mr. Dunn has, he had erected a fence right where the building actually is going. So his fence actually mirrors the back of what will be our structure. So what he's going to be looking at is his fence, not the back of our structure. So
Is he putting in a wood fence?
if there is a wood fence there currently
there is.
already, yes. And he spoke with us about it before he put it in. You know, that's kind of how all this started, was
Okay.
that he wanted to do the fence. I told him about the barn. We were all in agreement of what was going on. And, you know, we'll deal with the rest of it going forward.
The fence that he has there, he would
Thank you.
Thank you. No one here to make a rebuttal, apparently.
Have them formally open the public hearing, please. You never open it.
We're doing the applicant and staff presentation.
Okay,
So you can now do public.
I guess now we'll open the public hearing at 5:53.
have anybody to speak in favor or in opposition?
We can tell you wrong.
It's 36 by 36 feet in size.
Is this a facility, I'm sorry, this facility, the barn, we're at the bottom, so there's no water can go through it. So it'll have to go around the end of it.
So with, plans we have set up so that it'll actually bring water out around. So we know that water comes from Mr. Dunn's property through ours. So we already plan on having some additional drainage brought around the barn to bring back to the natural flow. So that we don't have, and I don't want to have water.
So it can flow. You're prepared to do that then? There's nothing else, I guess we need to close the public hearing. Close the public hearing at 5:54. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Guess we're ready. Make a motion.
A motion that we grant the variance. And I would base it on criterion A, there are special circumstances or conditions arising from the physical surroundings, shape, topography, or other feature affecting the land subject to the variance petition, such that the strict application of the provisions of this zoning ordinance to the development application would create an unnecessary hardship or inequity upon or for the petitioner, as distinguished from a mere inconvenience in developing the land or deprive the petitioner of the reasonable and beneficial use of the land.
Makes this quite different. I think it's just his grandfather, because it's only a 3.3 acre and a 5 acre zone. So it's really not laid out properly as we would do it now. It's done. So I think we have to accept pretty much that that's the reason we need to do this.
Just to clarify, this property is zoned agricultural and it's identified on future land use plan, the applicant property as RE2, not RE5. Okay, I was just making
What
sure.
is the setback on RE2 as opposed to RE5?
It's the same.
It's 50 feet.
It's
right?
50 feet for this type of structure and for ag, which is what their property is currently zoned.
Oh.
I just wanted to make sure that the property to the north is zoned as RE5, but this property is zoned ag, but future land use plan identifies it as RE2.
Ready for a vote? Those in favor? Those opposed?
Are
Were
you in
you
favor?
intended to
I'm
be
in
in favor?
favor.
Okay. All in favor.
The rest of you.
That's
fine.
5-0 then.
Can I do it twice?
Do it one time.
No,
One time? Okay. So I guess we're ready to close the meeting, aren't we?
business we have for tonight.
Meeting is adjourned at 5:57. That's the quickest one you've ever had.
That's close. We had one. in like
I
20
gotta take
minutes.
my wife out to
Yeah,
dinner.
we